it definitely sent support for them soaring all around the country. On Friday, you'll recall there were huge marches and demonstrations in Minneapolis, a day in which the whole city of Minneapolis basically shut down. Kids home from school, people didn't go to work, people agreed that they would spend nothing that day, transact no business that day. They instead spent the day in prayer and protest and finding new ways to stand up for each other, including these dozens of members of the clergy who were arrested Friday morning at the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport. They were there urging Delta Airlines and Signature Aviation and other companies with business at the airport to stop cooperating with ICE. Peaceful civil disobedience by members of the clergy, dozens of whom were arrested at the start of the day, Friday morning, in that bitter, bitter sub-zero cold. It was the next day, Saturday, when Trump's federal agents killed Alex Pretti in the street. And the streets filled instantly in response, in protest and anger and grief. And by that night, there were protests and vigils all over the city and on Sunday as well, just everywhere in Minneapolis. At the site where they killed him, at Whittier Park in that same neighborhood where they killed him, in downtown, at Minneapolis City Hall, in communities all over the city, retirement homes, right, where octogenarians came out into the bitter minus 20-degree weather to hold candles in vigil for Alex Pretti and for their city. And still today, this was a walkout today at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities campus. But it wasn't only Minneapolis standing up for themselves. I mean, this was Davenport, Iowa. This is 6 hours away from Minneapolis. We stand with Minnesota. This was 600 miles away in Grand Rapids, Michigan, in the cold and the snow. Grand Rapids stands with Minnesota. This was 1,600 miles away in Orlando, Florida. ICE murders again. This was Green Bay, Wisconsin, where Alex Pretti went to high school. The high temperature was a grand total of 7 degrees. See all the people there on the bridge? People came out in the cold and the ice and marched in his name and to stand up for Minneapolis. In Phoenix, Arizona, protests convened at the ICE field office in Phoenix. Big protests there Saturday night. Salt Lake City, Utah, protests convened at the federal building there. Look at that. Again, Saturday. This is instant, no advance notice. People just convened there on an emergency basis, essentially, after hearing the Trump administration and in memory of Alex Pretti and in support of the people of Minneapolis. Here was Milwaukee, Wisconsin this weekend. Here was New York City. Really big protest in New York City convened on zero notice Saturday afternoon after Alex Pretti was killed Saturday morning. Here was Seattle. Here was Tampa, Florida. Tampa on the right there, Seattle on the left. Here was Colorado Springs, Colorado, in the bitter, bitter cold and the snow. Here was Boise City Hall in Idaho. And Idaho, deep red Idaho, actually had more protests than just Boise. Also in Twin Falls, Idaho, and Idaho Falls and Coeur d'Alene. There was a huge, huge protest in Chicago. And of course, it is what democracy looks like. Peaceful protest is a core part of democratic action, small d democratic action. And the unromantic, strong, simple truth of the matter is that in our country right now, every small d democratic muscle that we have is flexing. And it turns out that that's way stronger than Donald Trump and way stronger than the worst designs of the Trump administration. United, persistent, earnest, creative, peaceful protests that have not relented for a minute in Minneapolis, right? Everybody from clergy to professional sports teams, to unions, to school parent groups, to school kids themselves, to indivisible groups, to Native American activists, to people who had never previously protested a single thing in their lives. I mean, every day, nevertheless, protesting, demonstrating, telling Trump's agents to get out, never giving them a moment's peace. Spontaneous, instinctual, and then ultimately organized mutual aid, community support, alerting people to the presence of federal agents, walking people's kids to and from school, dropping off groceries to families too afraid for good reason to get out of their house, doing know your rights trainings everywhere, responding in person when people are being attacked or taken, not being afraid when Trump's masked agents turn those very things into life-threatening confrontations, or being afraid, but still doing it anyway. And from the ground up, that huge effort by regular people in Minneapolis and people supporting them all around the country, it set everything in motion. And now we are seeing what's called political pushback that is so widespread and that is so relentless and that is so strong, there is no resisting it, even if you say don't believe in democracy. Local elected officials encouraging the peaceful protests, asking people to keep recording everything they can about the behavior of these lawless paramilitaries. You then see local elected officials out among the people. I mean, this was Governor Tim Walz and his wife at a vigil for Renee Good. This past Friday, Senator Amy Klobuchar and her husband at the huge peaceful protests in Minneapolis. We're going to speak with Senator Klobuchar in just a moment. I mean, you have Democratic force massed on one side of this issue, and on the other side, they have guns and tear gas and physical brutality and menace and their propaganda about how terrible immigrants are and how terrible, how everybody's against them as a communist or whatever. I mean, that's what they've got. They've got physical force, weapons, menace, and propaganda. That's what they've got on their side. But there is massed, committed, small d Democratic force of great resolve against that on the other. And guess which side wins? And so after they killed Alex Pretti on Saturday, we very quickly saw it all fall apart for them. Not because somebody defeated them in physical battle, right? They're the ones who are geared up like the way they're going to win, the way they're going to overthrow this democracy is in some kind of war, right? They can just have just the right military gear and just the right threatening, physical, intimidating force. That'll be how they win, right? That's how they think they'll win. With guns. The people of this country, on the other side, the opponents of that overthrow, the population of this country that is committed to, no kings, and there never being a dictator here. They know that the way they're going to win is not with guns, is not in a war. The people on the other